Welcome back to Spotlight Television. I'm Damon Roberts. Tom Hegner has trained over 300,000 financial advisors all over the world, and he's helped thousands of them become millionaires. He has spoken at over 5,000 seminars, including a PBS television special seen in over 80 million homes. His books, videos, and personal appearances have reached millions, and his retirement wisdom may be more important today in the face of economic turbulence than in many past decades. He's brought with him today his brand new book for young people looking to build wealth, entitled Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? We are excited to have him here with us today because when it comes to retirement, many consider him to be the retirement income expert. Tom Hegner, welcome to Spotlight Television.
Thank you, Damon. Great to be with you.
It is great to have you here, and I always like to give the audience a little background on you. I know you were a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army. I'm sure there's many things you took from that you've applied into this career of yours. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm originally from a small town of Minnesota. I went to college at North Dakota State University on an Army ROTC scholarship. I was commissioned in the military, spent 6 years active duty, 16 and a half years Army Reserve, retired as lieutenant colonel, was in the insurance industry for almost 30 years. I was with MetLife for 8 years, New York Life for 15 years. I retired in 2011. I've now written 6 books. 5 of them are on retirement, but this one is helping young people build wealth because I think that's so important. I don't think young people are getting the money training that they really need to be equipped to go out in this world.
Yeah, it does seem like the financial literacy for the younger generation is really lacking when it comes to even the most basic things of credit cards and debt and good debt, bad debt, those kind of things. Is that what the book is focused on?
Yeah, it's focused on giving people simple concepts to build wealth. These are the things I've trained my children in. You know, a lot of people think, oh, this is the first generation where kids won't be able to do better than their parents. I've told my kids the exact opposite. I said, this is your time because I've equipped them to be successful in this world, and they're all being successful so far because I think I've taught them what I call the secret to success. That when you get a job, I want you to go to work early, stay late, and always do more than you're paid to do. People say, well, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Because you're going to get promoted faster and paid more than your peers who come to work late, try to leave early, and do as little as possible for a paycheck. And so I just put simple concepts in here that will help people build wealth.
Yeah. There's a lot in there, and I want to talk about the current situation of today because I would think this is a more difficult time than ever to achieve, I'm assuming, what the book talks about. But let's step back just for a second. What led you originally to become a retirement strategist? Was it something coming out of your service that made you want to do that? What led you there in the first part?
Well, what happened was there was a MetLife agent going through my unit selling whole life insurance to my soldiers. And at the time, I believed in buy term and invest the difference. And I said, who's this guy ripping off my soldiers? I said, bring him to me. And they said, okay, sir, he'll see you tomorrow, but he wants your birth date. I said, give him my birth date. I want to see him in my office. He comes in my office, raking him over the coals. Why are you ripping off my soldiers? He said, no, sir, I'm helping them protect their families. I'm helping them save up for down payment on the first house, for their kids' college education, for tax-free income and retirement. In fact, your soldiers were nice enough to give me your birth date, so I ran a printout for you. And I'm looking at this. This was before the 7-pay test of life insurance. This was a 5-pay policy. You pay for 5 years and it's done for the rest of your life, and you have life insurance for the rest of your life. And I'm looking at this. I said, how can this be? After 6 years, my money's there, it's growing, the death benefit's growing. I said, why would anybody buy term insurance when you can buy this? He said, oh, I don't sell term insurance. That's what I sell. I said, do you get paid to sell it? He said, I get paid well to sell that. I said, I could sell that. That's how I got in the insurance industry, was on a 5-pay life insurance policy. But it's been an incredible career.
So your latest book, Tom Hegner's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Let's talk in general about the book. You've written a lot of books, obviously. Education obviously is important to you. Like you said, financial literacy. This one focused on young people. Yep. Why did you want to write this book specifically?
Well, what happened was I was asked to create a new presentation by several companies on financial wellness. That's kind of one of the buzzwords out there. And I was amazed in my research how financial wellness is tied to physical wellness, mental wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual wellness. They're all tied together. It was amazing. But financial wellness sounds boring. So I just changed the title to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because it's just simple concepts, financial wellness, financial literacy, whatever we want to call it, but it helps people build wealth. And yes, there are challenges, but if people could put this into practice, they can become wealthy. I tell people, you can Google janitors who become millionaires. There's a lot of people who become millionaires not making a lot of money. And kind of the dirty secret is everyone who's watching is going to make millions. If you make $50,000 a year, over your career, you're going to earn somewhere between 3 and 6 million. But if you could get that to 100,000, you're going to earn somewhere between 7 and 11 million. And if you could get that to 250,000 a year, you're going to earn somewhere between 15 and 28 million. Well, it's a lot easier to save $1 million when you're doing that. And so I teach people how to make more money. I teach people how to spend wiser, and then to invest in appreciating assets.
Yeah. So you break this down into 3 phases, and I want to get to the 3 phases. But when you said before that you're telling your kids now is your time, I find that interesting because now when you look at the world right now, people are much more familiar with a couple terms that I don't think they were before. Number 1, inflation. Number 2, CPI. Everybody knows the Federal Reserve. Everybody's paying attention to all of these meetings. You have inflation that we've never seen before and got as high as 9.2%. The Fed has raised 550 basis points in a little over a year, something we've never seen before. He's saying rates are going to stay higher for longer. Young people are looking at this and saying, God, has there ever been a more challenging time to try to even save wealth? People are trying to get check to check, savings down, credit cards way up. Is this not the most challenging time we've ever seen?
I think it's very challenging, but that's why people got to take it serious. I say the money you save in your 20s will allow you to retire in your 60s. If you're not saving money in your 20s, don't expect to retire in your 60s, you know? And so the one thing that young people have is time, and they can't waste that time. They've got to start saving. Even if it's $25 a month, you got to start saving when you're young. And we got to cut the spending. I mean, we're buying things we don't need or want to impress people we don't even know. And so I try to get people to stop looking like they're a millionaire. People are focused on trying to look like a millionaire. I said, no, focus on becoming a millionaire. Don't focus on looking like a millionaire.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the 3 phases, and I love this because you compare it to something that we can all relate to, at least those guys can relate to, and a lot of girls too. You compare it to golf, and you say there's 3 phases of building wealth. You compare it to golf. Tell me about this strategy.
Well, think about it. In golf, there's the drive, there's the approach, and there's the putt. I got 14 clubs in my bag. I don't use my sand wedge off the tee, and I don't use my driver out of the sand. You know, each club is there for a purpose. And in wealth, there's building wealth. I say, who wants to be a millionaire? There's protecting wealth, who wants to stay a millionaire? And then there's distributing wealth, who wants to live and give like a millionaire? And I focused my entire career on protecting and distributing wealth. This is what I'm doing because I've just seen young people are making big mistakes with their money. They're charging up credit card, and we can talk about debt in a little while, but I mean, that credit card debt is going to kill them. So I just want to get these concepts out there that we've got to lower our spending levels, increase our income, and I share with ways to do that.
Yeah. How do you motivate young kids in the world today? It's obviously a much different world than we grew up in with what's at their fingertips with social media and technology and things. How do you motivate kids to think that they actually can become millionaires? Again, a lot of kids looking at their parents struggling right now as they're getting into that kind of red zone of retirement towards the end. How do you motivate kids to think that, geez, yeah, I could become a millionaire?
See, I believe to achieve something, you got to be able to see it. And when you can see it, then you can believe it, then you can achieve it. Those are just very simple concepts. Zig Ziglar talked about that for years. And so what I did when I was a financial advisor, I'm not anymore, but this was 30 years ago. This was before ETFs. I couldn't illustrate mutual funds. I couldn't illustrate stocks and bonds. There was one product I could illustrate, and that was life insurance. So I would solve for $1 million of cash value at that person's age 65. And for example, a 25-year-old female would need to put about $7,700 a year away, and if she did that when she's 65, she'll have $1 million. Well, $7,700, that's a lot. But then I would take them over to a time value of money calculator, because I don't think everybody should put all their money in life insurance. That wasn't the point. My point was I wanted them to see it. Then I took them over to a time value of money calculator, and I said, look, if you could get 6% on your money, you only have to put away about $500 a month. If you could get 9% on your money, you have to put away about $250 a month. If you could get 12%, you only have to put away about $100 a month. Well, all of a sudden they sit there and say, well, I could do that or that. And then now they can see that they can do it. And now I wasn't a product pusher. I wasn't trying to sell them products. What we were doing is together we were going to try to build wealth. And that's how I did it is, you know, when I go to a ball game with my kids or we're at a party and somebody said, well, Tom, what do you do? Some people say, oh, I'm a life insurance agent or I'm a financial advisor. I didn't say that. I said, I help people become millionaires. You tell me how many million you want. I will show you what you need to do to get there. And that's how I did it. And so that's why I wanted to put in the book that when people can actually see that they can do it, because 90% of the people out there don't think they'll ever become wealthy. And you know what? They're right. And the other 10% do think they're going to become wealthy. And you know what? They're right too. To do it, you've got to believe you can do it. And that's what I'm trying to give people hope with this book. I'm trying to let them see that it is possible, that other people are getting wealthy. Not everybody's out there broke as a joke. There are people getting wealthy, and I try to show them how to do it.
Yeah. feel like the literacy part of it, and then obviously the encouragement, like you're saying, make them believe is kind of goes hand in hand. And especially even when you talk about basic insurance policies, whole life, term life. I mean, there's kids probably in their 20s who don't even understand whole life and how that builds cash value, things like that. All right, so let's talk about the 3 keys to building wealth. We're talking to young kids about being aggressive. You know, young kids growing up, their parents have always said, be the most aggressive you can. Don't worry about it. It's all for the future. Is that still true? And what are the 3 keys to building wealth?
All right, the 3 keys are: number 1, you want to make more money. Number 2, you want to spend wiser, and I would say for most people that means spend a little less money. And number 3, you want to put your money into appreciating assets. See, cars, boats, RVs, jet skis, clothes, handbags, they're all depreciating assets. Right. And if most of your money is going to things that are going down in value, you're never going to get wealthy. Now, we all need some depreciating assets, but you want to limit that, okay? And then you want to put money into appreciating assets. For making more money, I tell people you want to find your ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese concept where 4 circles intersect. The first circle is write down everything that you're good at doing, all right? Then the second circle is what do you love to do? And because you can be good at something, but if you don't like to do it, it's probably not a good combo. So what are you good at? What do you love to do? What does the world need? And what can you get paid to do? I found my ikigai. I like doing this. People say I'm pretty good at doing it. The world needs what I'm doing, and I get paid to do it. So I think there's so many people that just kind of stumble and bumble around life, and they don't really think about what was I put on this earth to do. They were put on this earth for a purpose, and your job is to figure out what that is, what are your talents, what are your skills, and then the purpose of your life is to go out and spread that far and wide and help as many people as possible. You want to be good at what you do. If you notice who gets paid the most, it's people who are good at what they do. I say there are riches in niches. Find your niche, it will make you rich. You want to be good. If you're a UPS driver, you want to have the best on-time record, the least accidents. If you're a plumber, you want to be the best plumber in the county. Good people get paid more. I mean, these are simple things, but I'm telling you, a lot of people don't think about that. There's this quiet quitting and all this other stuff that's out there. They just got to focus on being good at what they do. And then spend wiser. I say most Americans could become millionaires except for 2 simple things. They spend way too much money on their cars and they get divorced. So the moral of the story is drive a used car and stick with your first spouse. Now, I know that right now, car prices are crazy and used car prices are crazy, but a couple years ago, I had the chance to buy a brand new Ford F-150 pickup for about $65,000. Or I could buy a 2-year-old one with 13,000 miles for $30,000. Well, that's one I bought. And if I invested that money, I just got to read these numbers to you. If I invested that $35,000 at 6%, right. In 30 years it's worth over $200,000. In 40 years it's worth almost $400,000. In 50 years it's worth almost $700,000. If I could get 8%, that goes to $300,000, $800,000, $1.8 million. Now that's one vehicle. I'm married with 4 kids. We probably had 15, 16, 17 vehicles. You start multiplying those numbers by 10, 12, 14, 15. I think most Americans are driving around their $1 million retirement. Right. And you got to ask, is it worth it?
But it also goes back to the literacy part, right? Because people don't frame that argument that way that you just did. They think of buy or lease. They don't think or buy or used or new. They don't think about it in that. So that still goes back to the educational part, doesn't it?
And for 10 years in my 30s, I went 10 years without a car payment. Now I live in Arizona and I used to drive red convertibles. I go find the nicest used red convertible I could get and try to get the best deal I could. Then I would drive it for 2 or 3 years. Then I would sell it for as much or more than what I paid for. And I did that 3 times. And I think that 10-year stretch where I had no car payments, I just had gas, oil, and some tires maybe, I was able to amass a good chunk of money that 30, 40 years later now is a chunk of money.
Yeah. You talked before about appreciating assets as opposed to depreciating cars, boats, things that as soon as you drive it off the lot goes down. But right now, again, and I want to talk about just the current day we're in. People who look at real estate go, well, geez, I mean, appreciating asset, yes, but now I'm going to be in for an 8% mortgage. The market is pretty much locked. You can't sell, you can't buy. You don't want to borrow against because to borrow money is much more expensive now. Okay. So what are you telling people who are dealing with this in current day situation?
Yeah, well, a lot of it has to do with debt. And, there's some people who are totally against debt, and then there's some people who are totally for debt. I say this, debt has helped many people become millionaires, and debt has bankrupted many people. So I'm not a big fan of debt, but here's what I'll say. The time when you want to use it is if you can buy something and it goes up in value. So like a mortgage is less bad than a credit card. Credit card debt, super bad. Don't put credit card debt, and do not pay your balance off every month. Do not run up a credit card bill. And same with car cars. I would not take a car loan and pay off on a depreciating asset. And I think people just have not been trained that you don't want to be borrowing money to buy things that are going down in value. And if people really understood that, they would say, whoa, that doesn't make a lot of sense, you know?
Yeah. All right, let's talk about life insurance. I think you've said that life insurance is really a tax issue. So what do you mean by that?
Well, you know, our country's $33 trillion in debt. That debt is climbing at about $4 billion every single morning. We have nearly $200 trillion of unfunded obligation for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, government pensions, military pensions. Taxes are going to have to go up, and they're going to have to go up a lot. And it's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's a math problem. We need a math party.
Yeah.
You know, we need a party that can actually add and subtract.
It's economics, right? It works until it doesn't.
Neither of these parties can add and subtract. And so I believe taxes are going to have to go up a lot. So I have been converting my IRAs and 401ks to Roth. I'm almost totally completed with that. I'm taking advantage of the QLAC, the Qualified Longevity Annuity Contract, where you can defer RMDs up to age 85. I'm moving more of my personal wealth to cash value life insurance. I'm trying to position myself to have as much tax-free income in retirement. And I think people who have 401ks and IRAs are going to be very, very disappointed. You know, if I were to sit down with a young person now, here's the conversation I would have. I say, does your company have a 401k? Yes. Does it have a match? Yes. Explain the match. Well, if I put in 4%, they match it with 4%. Good, do that. That's a 100% rate of return. But beyond the match, I would not put a single penny into a 401k or IRA. I'd put it in a Roth 401k, I'd put it in Roth IRA, I'd put it in cash value life insurance, but I would not put it in a 401k. You know, I was playing golf a few weeks ago with a guy, and he said, Tom, I got $1 million in my 401k. I said, that's great. I said, how much of that is yours? He said, what do you mean? It's all mine. I said, no. It's not all yours. You have a partner. In fact, you're the limited partner. The government's the general partner. They get to take their cut first. And the problem is you have no idea what they're going to take. Right now, it's 38, 39%. What happens when that goes to 50%, 60%, 70%? And don't think it couldn't happen. The U.S. marginal tax rate was over 90% or at 90% after World War II. And our finances right now, I would argue, could be worse than after World War II.
And there's people in government that'd be happy to see it there again right now. Yeah, they'd be happy to have it back there. Do you feel like there's a lack of even education in your space, even with people who do this professionally? Like, I talk to people all the time who don't even know what the IRMA tax is. They're not even hearing it from their advisors. Is there a lack of knowledge even there?
Well, I think there is, and that's why I get hired by a lot of people to train those financial advisors, because, you know, when there were traditional companies, mutual companies like the old MetLife and the New York Life, they had great training programs and everything. But now the industry is really fractioned. Often there's stock companies and then there's, you know, independent organizations. And so there's different levels of training. Some of the financial advisors are top shelf, well trained, and some are not. And so, I mean, that's an issue that when you pick a financial advisor, financial profession, you want to make sure that they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Let's go back to the debt thing just for a second, because, you know, a lot of kids, even on social media, I see it a lot too in some of these social media apps. You see guys like Robert Kiyosaki and you see Grant Cardone, and you see all these guys, and all they do is push the whole debt thing. You know, why rich people don't pay taxes is because we just borrow against our assets, and they appreciate this amount and we borrow this amount, so our debt to income never changes. It's always the blah blah. So I want to just clear that up one more time. There's good debt, there's bad debt. You're a fan if your debt is going to something that's appreciating.
Yeah, if you're taking out debt, so let's talk some other debt. You know, people say student loan debt is good because you're getting a career that you're gonna, well, it depends. If you're going to be a brain surgeon, student loan debt might make sense. And if you only use it for tuition fees and books and not spring breaks and parties and beer and all that kind of stuff, I'd be okay with that. But if you're going to major in German poetry or English literature and you're going to rack up $200,000 of student loan, that was not a wise choice, because you're not going to make enough to pay that off. And so businesses, they say business debt is good. Well, about 85% of businesses fail in their first 5 years. So now they lost all that money, plus they lost because all debt is other people's money. And you got to pay the other people back with interest. I'll tell you a quick story of lessons I've learned. I was brand new second lieutenant, just got commissioned, and making $13,000 a year, man. I was wealthy. I go first right down to the car dealership, buy a brand new car. Well, let me tell you, that $250 a month car payment strangled me for the next 4 years. You know, we were in Germany, I have a wife, 2 little kids, and it literally strangled me. Then when I got really super smart, I learned about margin debt. Margin debt is where you can borrow from your stock or bond holdings and then leverage up. And I said, well, I'll only do that if I have almost 100% chance of it going up. And I found this stock that was 99.9% chance it's going to go up. So I took out some margin debt, and of course that stock went right down, and I lost that money and lost the other guy's money and had to pay interest. So I am not a huge fan of debt. There are ways to use it to your advantage, but just be very, very, very careful.
Right, and I'm assuming you feel the same when it comes to, let's say, whole life policies that have accrued a cash value. People say, well, if I leave it there, maybe I'm getting 4%, but if I borrow against that and get the market at a good time, so how do you feel about that?
I do not advise taking money, borrowing money out of one product to go invest in some other financial products. The regulators hate that kind of stuff. I don't do any of that in any of my training. I mean, if people want to do that on their own, that's their business, but I would not recommend it. I'm not a big believer in taking out debt to invest. I'm just not.
Okay. So let's talk about, you got the book, and obviously I'm excited that we're going to be doing a series with you that you're going to be hosting here on Spotlight Television with other professionals in this space. I'm excited about that as well. But let's talk about how people can see you, some of your speaking, whatever you've got coming up in your schedule, and how people can get a hold of you.
So I'm pretty easy to find, tomhegna.com. I even have a special on the book. I'll pay for the shipping on it. But for younger people, they should probably follow me on Instagram and TikTok. That's where I post my millionaire stuff. And then the baby boomers can follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook. That's where I post my retirement, because I've spent my entire career helping baby boomers retire the optimal way. So pretty easy to find.
Very good. Great conversation at a very important and challenging time right now for all of this, and for young people, like you said, who want to be a millionaire. Tom Hegner, thanks for being on Spotlight Television.
Thank you, Damon.
And we'll be right back.